This is the demonstration for a rough outline. Now, if your pieces are pinned to a board and some objects are hanging off the edge, like if they're sticking off the edge right here, you can actually take your board, lay it on your paper, and go ahead and trace the outline of your board. You're going to actually end up drawing everything to the exact same size. So I find this is pretty helpful. And then go ahead and fill in any gaps that you missed. Obviously your board would have some objects on it, but for now mine does not. I will have a picture up in the corner of this video that shows what I'm going to be looking off of. So what you want to do for a rough sketch is you're going to look at how large a certain object is. So I'm looking at the watch, and remember we talked about proportions in that other video introducing this project. Then we want to look at how big an object is compared to the entire space or compared to another object. So I'm looking at that watch, and I'm kind of just going to draw the general shape. So the watch is kind of in a circular kind of shape, so I'm going to go really lightly a couple times around to try and get that just general size and shape. So I'm looking at it, it might be reaching just about halfway, but a little before, so that's why I've stopped it right here. And I wouldn't say the watch reaches down a whole to the halfway point of the paper, maybe like a third. So I might bring that up a tiny bit. Okay, so I'm just making a bunch of lines, and eventually I will erase all these extra ones. And now for the tea bag, I can kind of lay that up here. It doesn't touch the watch. There's a little bit of space between, which is why I have that right there. And it goes over, it just barely pokes over the side of my board. So since my tea bag was similar to a square, I kind of went roughly in a rectangle square shape. And then I've got those wristbands. I would say the bottom of the wristband doesn't quite reach the bottom of the page. It's not halfway. I'm just going to try and estimate where that would end right here and then where it begins. So it actually does touch my watch. So I want to make sure I get the beginning and end parts. And then it's just kind of a long rectangle. I'm going to try and get the curvature of it just decently. So we've got this. I'm drawing really lightly so I don't have a hard time erasing later. So I'm just going to kind of block out this whole area of these wristbands. And then right there is where it goes off the page. So I'm really, really rough with it, very loose. And then I have that one piece that's coming out. And when I look at the end of that wristband, I can see that the center of it kind of lines up with the corner here. So that's why I've laid this edge out right here. Right here, and then I've got my plant, generally an oval-ish shape. And then I've got my euros, my little coins here. Looks about like right there. And then this one is underneath this. So I'm going to make sure I kind of sketch that underneath my other one so I kind of remember that it's underneath. Okay, so from there, now you've got some really general shapes. You can actually go in and look at the negative spaces. For me, there's not a ton of negative spaces in most of my objects, but I do have one, especially in the watch. So I'm looking at the negative space or that gap on the inside of the watch, kind of getting that open space in between so I can start forming that actual watch shape. And then I have that watch strap that goes right out here. And then obviously this will be a little different from my photo based on what the actual objects I'm looking at are, just the angle that I'm looking at it. And then you can go in, I would use a big eraser and get rid of any extra lines that aren't actually what you want them to be. So I was testing out my circular shape for a couple times till I got the right shape, right size. I don't need all of these extra lines. I can get rid of that. And this is really important that you draw lightly so they're easy to erase later on when you start to actually do detailed contour lines. Okay, so this is your rough outline of your autobiographical still life. From here, you're eventually going to add more detailed contours, but for right now, this is your basic first step. You want to make sure everything is correctly proportioned the right general shape, the right size compared to the board that you have on your paper.